What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Dolo J, aka the Dolo Kid, back with another video. Don't ask me why I'm wearing this hat. I just put it on. I always wear something on my head for my videos, so I just felt like putting this on. So how do you do? But video we talking about today, basically, Demar Derozen has basically been traded to the Kings in a 3-team trade. The three teams are the Kings, Spurs, and the Bulls. The Kings get DeMar DeRozan, Spurs get Harrison Barnes, Bulls get Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, cash considerations. Technically a sign and trade because DeRozan agreed to a 3-year, $74 million contract as well. Is this a needle mover for me? No, but I understand that the Kings, and I said this in one of my previous videos, the Kings basically ran their whole team back last season, and it did not work. Basically, it didn't yield the results that the year previous, where they were third in the West. Last season they were 46-36, finished ninth. The previous season they finished third, and they were 48-34. So that just goes to show the jump that the West took. It's always been competitive, but it took a jump because you really had 2 less wins, and instead of dropping a seed or 2, you went from third to ninth with the same exact roster. So the Kings are just, making a move because they know they can't run it back. De'Aaron Fox has not yet signed his contract extension to the best of my knowledge. They did end up bringing back Malik Monk on a 4-year, $78 million deal. So that's somebody that they really coveted. Him and Fox really do have a dynamic, backcourt thing going on, especially to close out games. Malik Monk being that scoring punch off the bench that the Kings desperately needed. Also stepping into the starting role a lot when Kevin Huerter, I believe, went down with his injury. The Kings also had Keon Ellis start as well, and still brought Monk off the bench so they could just have some a proven guy off the bench. So for the Kings in that aspect, they locked up somebody that they wanted to keep. They retained somebody they wanted to retain. Monk could have went anywhere, but it's 6-man for any team. You know what I'm saying? And possibly still got some bread, but for him to stay in Sacramento, play basically, to the best of my knowledge, his best friend in De'Aaron Fox, is something that the Kings wanted to do. But like I said, is this a needle mover for me? Oh, my fault. I had to check my teeth real fast. I was just eating some beef jerky. But is this a needle mover for me? Probably not. Does this keep the Kings from even being in the play-in? Possibly not. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things. Like, just got to see how it goes. DeRozan had a heck of a season last year with the Bulls, and the Bulls are in their full rebuild, what it looks like. Trading away Caruso. Now, DeRozan in the sign and trade. They've been trying to get off Zach LaVine for at least a year. They extended Vucevic, but I think later on down the line in this offseason, or maybe even towards the trade deadline once the season does start, I can see them possibly moving Vucevic as well. Like I said, full rebuild. I guess the team is going to belong to Kobe White and Josh Giddey, which, every now and again, you do have to rebuild, especially when you didn't have the success you thought you was going to have. The first season where they had LaVine, DeRozan, Vucevic, and Lonzo Ball throughout 50 games. It was like 50 games, maybe 60. They were the first seed. And then after Lonzo Ball went down with his injury, the team has just never looked the same since. They did make the playoffs that season. Ultimately, I think they got swept by the Bucks, or it was 4-1, something like that. The last 2 seasons, man, they've basically been playing teams trying to fight their way into the playoffs, not ultimately making it. And the roster just needs to be reconstructed. It's time. It's probably been time. I understand that, you hold on hopes of Lonzo possibly coming back, and with him coming back and the success you had previously, that maybe you could run it back again. But, Lonzo is taking way longer than anybody has expected for him. Hopefully he does eventually get to play again. I do want to see Lonzo, play, man. I don't like to see nobody career derailed due to injuries, man. Regardless of what team, what player, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. I don't want to see that. Now, back to the Kings. Like I said, they add DeRozan to try and make some moves and try and entice De'Aaron Fox to sign his extension, because him and Sabonis are the franchise players, and you don't want to lose De'Aaron Fox, especially for nothing at all, given the fact that he is, you're basically your best perimeter defender. Him and Keegan Murray are your best perimeter defenders. Him and Sabonis offense runs through them too. De'Aaron Fox is an integral part of what the Sacramento Kings are trying to do. And you know what's crazy to me, and I was thinking about this before I made the video? Why every time a team needs to make a change and they have Harrison Barnes on the team, they just assume he's just so expendable? Like the Warriors need to make a change. What, they brought in KD, I believe. Harrison Barnes, gone. Now, he was on the Mavs for a little stint. Now the Kings need to make a move. We're going to ship you to the Spurs. Like, that's just so crazy to me that this man is always expendable. Like, but he gets to go play with Victor Wembanyama, ask him, him and Chris Paul. We don't expect the Spurs to do nothing this season too much. We do expect Wemby to take a possible jump as far as like play, stats, and things like that, and just overall feel for the game. But as far as like making the playoffs or possibly the play-in, I don't really see the Spurs doing that. I believe they're probably a year away from making a play-in spot and 2 years from making the playoffs outright, if you just ask me. One thing I do know is that having, some young guys, having some vets, some proven guys. Harrison Barnes been a champion before, even though it was 9, almost 10 years ago, whatever, but he's still done it before, so he still has some knowledge he can pass down, and hopefully he can help Wemby out in whatever advice he sees fit. I understand making a move to basically get your franchise player to say, hey, you know what I'm saying, we trying. We couldn't get Clay or Paul George or none of those guys, which is kind of understandable. Like, to be honest, Sacramento's not like a huge free agent destination place. For whatever reason, some people going to say because of the history of the team or the market or stuff like that. It is what it is. It's okay. And what we're starting to see is like some of the bigger places, like New York is still, a place players want to go. And that's where a lot of players are going right now. The Lakers. Nobody's really been going to the Lakers yet. Miami, places like that. You can see a lot of free agents wanting to go just for reasons other than basketball. But Sacramento's not a place I see people like, yeah, you should really go to Sacramento. It's just not one of those places. This is not one of those places. And the basketball team, basically being bad for an extended period of time. At least as long as I've been an NBA fan, Kings, like I said, 15, 16 year playoff drought. I've only seen them make the playoffs once. Of course, I went back and watched the Bibby, Stojakovic, and those guys. But, yeah, just my NBA fan, I've only seen them had one good season, which was 2 seasons ago. Last season, you could say it was kind of It was kind of hard for them, but for the most part, man, the Kings, they got to get some more pieces. Maybe another guy off the bench who can bring some scoring punch. Because they got the 3, but they got a couple guys in the starting lineup with Fox, DeRozan now, and Sabonis who can really get some buckets and really put the ball in the basket. Sabonis is more of the facilitator of the 3. DeRozan does like to have the ball in his hand a lot. He can play, can score. It's just going to be interesting to see the spacing because Sabonis and DeRozan kind of operate, at least in my opinion, like free throw line down type thing, free throw line extended area. Spacing is going to be quite interesting. And then with those two in the paint, now it's going to be harder for De'Aaron Fox to get those drives that he loves. Or maybe he just harps into being more of a catching 3-point guy. Who knows? Does DeRozan start the offense, bring the ball up the floor a little bit more, given the fact that he's not the best defender, and he's also later in his career. So maybe they could take a strain off De'Aaron Fox as far as like initiating offense and stuff like that. With DeRozan having the ball, but him and Sabonis working in the same area, it's gonna be something that I have to see work out. They're NBA players, they're professionals. You know what I'm saying? They have one of a good coach in Mike Brown, so I understand that he's gonna try and find a way to make all this work. But like I said, the Kings just making a move for the sake of making a move and try and keep their star player. But this has been your boy Dolo J. Another video on the channel. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We're gonna keep doing what we doing. All things basketball, man. The Olympics coming up. I've been watching a little bit of Summer League. I'm not too familiar with everybody. We're going to try and get into it a little bit more when the Vegas Summer League hits. Until next time.